Chapter 11. Profound Simplicity. The Child and the Child's Equation. Note to the reader. Remember again, we are writing now to achieve an overtone within the reader. Quite beyond the words written here, which may seem unnecessarily sharp to some, is something grander. What? The reader's own dawning light of life. Giving goes in two directions. We have noted that the two aspects of giving are like the seed giving its root to earth, Caesar, and its limbs to the air, Spirit. What is the equivalent in one's human experience? Giving to the earth is giving a part of one's tangible substance to someone who needs it, as certainly as a seed must give part of its actual inner substance to the earth, literally and actually. So the victorious man must give some of his worldly substance. The man who gives little or nothing to the earth is certain to receive little or nothing from the earth, and must resort to taking what he needs from others. Giving to God what is God's. The question now becomes, how does one give to God what is God's? There needs to be no doubt or argument about how one is to do this. We do it exactly as the Christ light lived and taught. To Caesar and to God. Ministers give the spiritual bread of life to the congregation. The metaphysician who talks to his friends about the wonders of truth in his personal affairs is doing the same, in different words and in different context. But these two actions, the ministers and the metaphysicians, are the same. Such giving is precisely what Jesus meant. He lived this activity with a ministry everyone is familiar with. Then that light of life told those who could hear his voice to go and do as he had done, to tell the story and heal the sick. The objectivist churchman gives freely of his tangible wealth, but often he doesn't give so freely of his own inner glimmers. In the world, there is a great reluctance to talk about things so personal and meaningful. If there is talk at all, it is usually expressed in the words of some respected spiritual authority or quoted as scripture until one becomes little more than a walking anthology for the words of other people. This is hardly being a spokesman for one's own gift of light. One's own light is left unwritten, unstated, and sadly unreflected. As a matter of fact, the churchman often has little he can say about the sweet, glimmering joys of the inner gift, because those sparks come primarily from giving them. The orthodox schools are more likely to make moral, psychological, and ethical gift statements to others, or statements from scriptures that support an organizational view of salvation. These statements, from object to object, about objective experiences, are the first step. But when the subjective idea dawns and we realize that the world lives within the awareness that sees it, our gifts to the world become quantum in their power. It may appear we are giving to one needy man or woman, but we are giving subjectively to the universe of man. On the other hand, having heard of oneness, and having experienced some intimation of the power of subjectivism in his affairs, the student of truth is more likely to give that aspect of truth to his acquaintances. But glimpses do not continue to come from that activity either, unless one is giving his substance to the world as well. And here we have the strange blind bind of Metadelphia and its extreme position in absoluti. Nothing in metaphysical literature to this point in time tells of the child or the child's equation. The whole wonder of giving becomes more remarkable when one does both kinds of giving and receiving. A divine synergism develops, as one quickly finds when he puts this double-barreled action to the test. Absolute bosh and nonsense, Samuel. This is a difficult concept for students of truth, especially those who are hanging tightly to the absolute position that decrees the reality of matter in all its appearances. The metaphysician within myself was certain that charities for human ailments and disasters headed the list of illusions that weren't happening and shouldn't be supported. The absolute position insists that broken hearts and cancer are not real and do not exist. The paradox is, they don't actually, but this is not the point here. They seem to exist, and we are dealing with the seeming, however absolute and isolated we think we've become. The consciousness of need appears in the same seeming world the metaphysician denies and ignores. Wherever one has been able to move beyond this peculiar to metaphysics barrier sufficiently to get up, get out, and give to a charity or needy family anyway, that one begins to receive in ways he never thought possible. Still, that much giving is only the first part of it. There remains the other part, and even that is only a bit of the equation. I liken the second kind of giving to the seed's inexplicable gift to the sunlight. It shoots a tiny stem up into sheer nothingness, and when it does, the entire universe gives back to the seed. Even so for the seeker, when he finishes the transaction and gives to God what is God's. In this arena, the objective view of things surrenders before the least glimpse of subjectivism. Nothing is more basic than the following spiritual truth. Giving the spiritual truth is the door opener to light, just as giving one's substance is the door opener to worldly riches. I do not believe one receives the real glimmers of truth until that one has given of his storehouse to others, and most certainly he doesn't continue to receive them unless he does. Beyond theory and speculation. These exchanges must be made in actual fact, not merely thought about and considered and judgmentally debated as to their merits. The gift goes out from our tangible bodily hand into the hand of someone else out there in Caesar's world, and our own words of stories and events wherein the light of life has done something in our affairs is spoken out of our present body and listened to by someone at hand to receive the essences, the spiritual light, which essentially is giving God what is God's. The interface with light and light is not complete until this is done in actual fact. Oh, but when we have done it, we feel it and know it is right. The gift to God is most quickly accomplished with words to men, written or spoken. But both gifts are made and both exchanges are completed right here by oneself, out of his own wealth, external, and his own glimpse, himself, internal. The metaphysical in-house performance is not enough. In the early years, metaphysicians were good about giving the spiritual truths. Their testimonials were attended by outsiders who had come to hear what subjectivism was all about. Today, those exchanges have become a closed performance from student to student, who, for the most part, question the correctness and sincerity of the words they're listening to. Recently, Rachel and I visited with a lady practitioner who said, "I don't believe those testimonials anymore. Those people don't know what they're talking about because they are so dualistic." Such words hardly come from one who is running with the subjective child of himself. In Metadelphia, that in-house exchange has become as productive as hugging one's own photograph. The spiritual glimpses the metaphysician once received regularly are not arriving as they did, and his church is like a dying tree. One more point that will ring a bell with many readers. The equation has to do with the flow of truth, inside to outside, above to below, and then the other way simultaneously. We learn to receive, too. Have you noticed how hard it is to give things to some people? Metaphysicians are prone to be that way at certain bends of the river. But to accept the gift proffered is to allow the other man to be a giver. We learn to receive as well. Patting the foot in the cathedral. Even more apparent, we see many who have withdrawn from their organizations, where at least they gave a little to Caesar's world, and they are drying up spiritually like prunes, wondering what has happened to their truth. Nothing has happened to their truth. They have stopped sharing it with the rest of themselves. I recall how wonderfully the truth came to me back in those early days of my subjective discovery, when, in grand enthusiasm and naivete, I shared it with everyone who would listen. Ah, but how the glimpses came in those days. Reader, how long has it been since you spoke to a neighbor or a friend about anything the subjective light of light has done for you? How long since you have spoken of subjectivism to anyone outside your little circle of friends? Or how long has it been since you took a needy family under your wing and gave them some of your physical and tangible things they needed? Vaunted churchman and metaphysician, listen. The little backwoods Baptist lady, with hardly enough to feed her family, has very likely done more of the merciful gift-giving necessary to the world than has the metaphysician secluded in his mental tower. Do these words seem unduly brutal? Look for yourself and see how many subjectivists stand in the soup lines serving homeless street people. See how many orphanages and homes for the elderly of all denominations have been built by the metaphysicians of the world. Compared to the works of the old theology, subjectivists and scientists disdain so, their work for the world has been little indeed. While I am still in the world, let my interface be complete. Interface seems to be at the surface with people, but it is deep in the heart of God. You and I come together at the intellectual level of words and conversation, but that level is deep in the child's heart. The child of you and the child of me is the same one, deep in the heart of God. Whether I say anything to you or not, whether we even meet or not, We are already one in the child heart of things. When or if it appears we must talk to one another for any reason, I will strive to bring my heart and my mouth to say the same thing. Therein we will understand each other in harmony. Therefore, I tell you now, above all things else, I will endeavor to speak of the child heart of myself. In so doing, we will be in total harmony, like two old friends who have known each other forever. Why not, old shoe? Why not? The lights of the world have discovered the child. Those who run with the child have found the equation. Those who have found the equation live it because it is like death not to. To live the equation is to look around and about and see wonder everywhere and everything, despite the world's antics. Ah, but then the world sees our seeing and comes to ask about it, that it might see the same. If we are persistent, if we are honest and speak of the heart, if we don't stop until the world has discovered the child and its equation, we will see our world come to confirm our heaven at hand. When will we know we have been persistent enough? When the world ends its warfare and struggle to understand. That is when the final covenant begins to be lived in the external world, confirming our own living of the covenant. As the Bible states, that last covenant is already written in our heart. There is no intermediary between us and it. There is no intermediary between God and us. Therefore, nothing exists between this awareness I am, this child of all, and Godhead itself. Our work isn't finished until we look up and out, around about, and see our subjective selfhood at peace. We complete the transaction. The light thrives and comes in abundance when light's grand transaction is completed. Only when one interfaces with the rest of his world, inside, outside, and stops holding his precious light and substance within himself as if no one existed out there who appears to need the truth. These are the ones whom Jesus warned that if they did not give of the little they had, even the little they had would be taken from them. He said that if they did not bring forth that which is within themselves, they would lose it. Within a man of light there is light, and he lights the whole world. How can he do such a thing? His world is subjective. Back to the journal again. One wonders why these things are not being told and taught in the world. The simple answer is that this fuller revelation of giving and receiving hasn't dawned within either the objective or subjective schools as yet, and it won't until we tell our glimpses and glimmers in just the way we are doing it here. We get out our notebooks and we begin. Well, now, here we come again, yet again, to the place of importance our words occupy, and why we write in our journals as we do. We have found writing to be the most powerful of all disciplines short of the equation itself. It is the natural accompaniment to the discipline into which we all come for a divine purpose, and which we leave when finally we succeed in unbinding our own subjective view of things. Writing allows one to create the best possible interface for giving God's gift to God. The painful melody of joy overtone. Who are the awakened? Those who have found the child. But they haven't attained the top of the mountain when they first find the child, have they? No, the child within leads them there, showing them how to live the equation. The minister. A minister was invited to visit the second master of Kwong Se. When he arrived at the second master's house, the minister said, "Your words have been meaningful to me, and I have long wanted to meet you face to face. I have given your words to many in the province." "Yes, I know," said the master. "That is commendable, and it is the reason I have invited you. I want to give you a gift of gratitude to you in return for your telling others of me." Then the master said the secret words of the equation. As quickly as the words were uttered, they were followed by a flash of lightning on the mountain. When the thunder stopped echoing through the hills, the master said, "I will explain the words to you if you wish. They will allow you to enter the province treasury and give whatever you like to your world." The minister, busy thinking what he was going to say next to impress the master, didn't hear the words of the equation or the offer to explain them. The host repeated the offer. When the thunder stopped shaking the mountains, the promise to explain was made once more, but the minister's much thinking still didn't let him hear. The tired old teacher told the word and made the promise for the third time, saying it differently in order to make himself understood. The minister neither heard nor asked. "I have appointments to keep, and I must not take too much of your time," he told the second master in feigned humility, and hurried away. The second master of Kwong Se told Han about his visitor, who was too busy to either see or understand the magnitude of the gift proffered. "Why are you surprised?" asked Han. "The master of Galilee prepared a feast and invited the businessmen and merchants. They were more anxious to keep their schedules than eat the food." That simple man denounced the businessmen and told his servants to let anyone come to the feast who wished. Now, my friend, why should you be surprised that your invited guest hurried on his way, more interested in his bondage than in the way to freedom? Truth seekers are eager to free themselves of pain, but seem unaware they are to resolve the world's pain as well. Subjectivism makes it possible to help the universe entire. We open our doors to those who find us. We talk of the equation to those who are willing to live the equation, because they are worthy of it. Even that is no indication that they will drink the water of our cistern, but if the truth is important to them, they will come asking questions, and we answer honestly, exactly as we would have them answer ours. Who are the least simple? Who are the least simple and childlike people in the world? Mary wondered. "I think the ministers," Lee said, after a moment of thought, "because they are so serious." "Soldiers," said the soldier. "If they get childlike, they get dead." "Young adults," said Ho. "They want so much to be adults. They hurry to leave their childhood behind." "But they are close to the child," said Lee. "Ministers are often so somber, so sanctified and self-righteous. They take everything seriously, as if the world was hinged on the front door of their particular building." "Isn't it?" asked the soldier, looking for an argument. "Never mind," laughed Mary. "We are asking who are the least childlike among men." That night at the campfire they asked Han, "Who are the least childlike?" The old man puzzled. "Wouldn't it be best to know who is the most childlike?" "You are," Lee said quickly. "Then why do you ask a child such a question?" "Because you can answer it," said Lee. "Then, my friends, can you see that the way to know the man who is least childlike in the world is to become the child yourself. The fireflies sparkled that evening. Why did the carpenters say to pray without letting others hear them? Isn't prayer on the street better than no prayer at all? Oh, yes, said Mary, but I imagine he was talking about the secret equation. How so, Mary? If one is accustomed to giving, he doesn't say anything about his gift. He just gives. He acts without regard or regret. If one is not accustomed to acting so, he says, I left something for you on the table. That is better than not giving at all, of course, but it is not as one acts from the heart. To act from the heart is to give the gift without expecting something from that one in return. That's ridiculous, the soldier shouted. There are those of us who have grown up with nothing. We have had to work hard for the things we have. We can't be faulted because we place a high value on the things that have come to us slowly. We part with our possessions more carefully than those who have much. But I am not guilty because I don't want my gift overlooked or lost. There, you make my point, the little lady with the bright eyes smiled. It is the matter of value that we are talking about. If an unseeable reality is the real value, then our material things have less value, or none at all. Isn't it strange to call matter unreal and then clutch it so tightly, hesitant to let it go out and help others? Well, I need a little of that unimportant material stuff to buy food and feed my family, the soldier from the far country growled. Well, we all do, Mary replied, but it is our giving that is the value to us, not our gift. Why do you and Han and the preacher talk so damn much about giving? The soldier asked with anger. Because it bothers you so, said Han from out of the shadows. When it stops bothering you, we will be able to move beyond the things you cherish most to something to be cherished more. Touching the tender places. Han said, the role of the honest teacher, like that of the prophet of old, is to touch our tender places. What is pain but the push to find something beyond? Somewhere along the line, we learn this slowly. If we are fortunate, we find someone with the courage to tell us directly and honestly, in words we can understand, in words that punch their way through our crust of selfishness and fear. The teacher within does not give us the smooth stone or the soft sound. The truth is not always gentle. You lure one here with the soft sound, you know, the soldier said, still growling. Then, when he gets here, you nail him with hard teachings. The man who leaves here is not the man who came here. One day he will see what he left behind while he was here. Hans stirred the fire. Everyone sat thinking. In a moment, the old teacher said, Tell me something, soldier. Tell me your most vivid memory and what it has taught you about yourself. The battlefield, the soldier answered quickly, beginning to catch a glimpse. You needn't ask if that was painful. It was. It surely was. A hush fell across the meadow. Even the fire stopped crackling. Barely above a whisper, the soldier said, Why must I learn things so slowly and painfully? Find the purpose pain and pleasure serve, my young friend. Not so much how to avoid pain and how to. Have you avoided them, master? The subdued soldier asked. No, I have learned their lessons. All of them? I don't know. Unabashed, the soldier wrote home. I'm glad to know there's something the old bastard doesn't know. The slow seed had been planted, however. It would take years, but the seed would grow apace, and the soldier would find it one day. Friend reader, this has been a bell-clanging and pounding chapter. It can be invaluable to the student who is willing to go all the way to the top of confirmation's mountain. My experience tells me that many will feel uncomfortable with these pages, no matter how much the words are softened. But when half the apparent world is starving, and the other half accumulating and gorging itself in sensual gratification, accumulating and storing enough energy to destroy the earth in the process, someone must tell of the equation again. The sincere of myself will grow to appreciate what has been written here when, in the search for happiness, all else has been tried and has failed.